Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. What is going on? The middle of the week is here. My name is Justin Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com. And I am just so happy to be back in action with all of you all week long, noon Eastern. Your free stream and arm reached out to you from all of us as part of the Elite Mafia at FantasyGuru.com. As always, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Ray Flowers is with you at noon Eastern, and I handle Wednesdays. The last few weeks, though, I haven't been here, and I thank Ray Flowers very much for filling in for me for those last few weeks. The reason is, and I wasn't too loud about it beforehand, but then I put a few posts out on social media. My wife and I just welcomed in our second child, our son, Theo. So happy to bring the youngest member, one of the youngest members of the Elite Mafia now to you. So it's been great bringing him in. And as I gave birth to another child, well, I haven't given birth, but if you look at my stomach, you would think, I'm not going to show it, I don't want to break your screens, but you look at my stomach, you would think that I just gave birth. But at the end of the day, my wife putting in all that hard work and labor to do so here, and I'm very appreciative and love her very much. And love all of you, too, because I've been getting messages from you over the last few weeks. I saw them, liked, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. My family does, from the bottom of our heart, and for everybody for filling in for me, from Ray Flowers to some of the other staff as well, getting me back in action for week number one. Because speaking of birthing, we are about to be giving birth to a new NFL season. Tomorrow night, it begins. So stoked. Angelo, great to see you, and thank you very much for the mazel tovs and the congratulations. Really appreciate being back with you, Senor Rojo. Yes, it is. It is a great time of year, and we're going to have a great, great year. So I was actually watching Ray. I was kind of hanging in the shadows here, doing all the feedings, but watching Fantasy Sports Daily, and Ray kind of explained yesterday, Ray Flowers, how exactly the shows are going to be going moving forward. He explained that football being in season, Mondays will be dedicated solely to football. Then Ray on Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday is going to give a little 50-50 split of baseball and football. And by the way, I might as well put this out there for those that are ready or not yet maybe ready for the NFL season. And for everything that we have to offer, you can get it all together for just $400 when you go to this link right here. Get everything we offer. Get ready to win your seasons however you may plan to do so. DFS contests, betting, season-long fantasy football. We've got you covered. And we cover other sports as well, which is why I'm telling you that on Wednesdays, now the NBA season is about a month and a half away. Once the NBA begins, I will do a 50-50 NBA NFL show. Rich Maletto is going to join me every single week, so we're going to be chopping it up, including today. He'll join me about halfway through in just a little bit. But before NBA begins, it will be all football all Wednesday long, every single Wednesday until near the end of October. Then I'll talk a little DFS and betting NBA so we can get caught up in that and we can win in that. And then I will talk football for the second half of the show. But don't worry, you're getting plenty of football content all year long here from us at FantasyGuru.com, including yours truly. I will once again be writing the injury report. And how I handle the injury report, as you know, I take everything I do very, very seriously, especially for the site. So how I'm handling the injury report is I'm going to have a few pass-throughs. When I hand it in, I have a deadline. There are probably going to be a few of those West Coast teams that aren't in yet, but I will do a second pass-through, or a first pass-through after the article is posted every Friday, and around the evening time, it will be posted. And then immediately upon posting, I will start updating it with the remaining news. Update it on Saturday, give one final small update Sunday morning, and that way everybody knows who's in, who's out, who's the biggest threat of being out. I do offense and defensive players, so you can see, maybe from the betting angle, you could see something in my injury report that helps you stay away from a bet. So I'll be handling the injury report. I'll have this stream. And as I bring this up here right now, another fun announcement for all of you. If I could direct you guys to the bottom of this document right here, our little show document, Elite Sports Game Time. That's right, it's game time. It's returning to the SiriusXM airwaves this Sunday on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's SiriusXM Channel 87. You get the Elite Mafia in the morning with Jeff Mans. He'll be joined by Bob Harris for the pregame show, 11 a.m. Eastern. And then yours truly and Russell Clay will be hosting in the evening, 6 p.m. Eastern every single Sunday, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern every Sunday on Fantasy Sports Radio, Sirius XM Channel 87. Very excited to be back. Very excited to represent the Elite Mafia and for Russell Clay to be hanging with me for those hours. We'll be talking about the live action going on because by the time we hit the airwaves, it should be about halfway through the later block of games, the later afternoon block of games. So we'll cover the live action, recap the earlier action, and preview from a DFS, fantasy, and betting angle the Sunday night football game every week. Will we get into Monday night football? Sure. Will we be giving you the first word on who we need to target on the waiver wire? Hell yes. Will we be talking about all the injuries and how to prepare ahead of time, making sure your teams are organized, even going into Sunday nights? Hell yes. Will we be taking your calls on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, 888-963-2682, for all those that might have their matchup hanging in the balance and you have one damn lineup decision to go? You're going to call us. We're going to help you win, and we're going to be on 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern all season long. Very happy to be back on for Elite Sports Game Time. Again, 6 p.m. Eastern, and I'll be promoting the hell out of it, and same with Russell too. And we want everybody to get involved. And that Game Time Discord channel is still going to be active. So you can comment in the Game Time Discord channel. It's almost like a game of Chutes and Ladders, where you being part of the Elite Mafia gets you instant access to us. I'm watching that Game Time Discord room. And I'll be watching it every Sunday and reacting to your comments, reading your comments on the international airwaves that we have. So that is kind of where I'm looking right now. I'll be taking your questions throughout too. I know Money X is someone who's been asking a question here, a very quick one here. Would you start CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, or instead of Pickens, would you start Swift there? See, I see how you think there. I mean, look, they are facing the Eagles tomorrow night there. You could hedge. I see why you do that. I'm normally, by the way, I've done this before where I've had, and on a couple of my teams, I have two receivers from the same team. Last year, I did it a lot. I started both of them. St. Brown, Jameson Williams, I was starting both of them for a good amount of time. So I understand, Money X, why you do that. I am going to tell you, though, to go with Swift and Lamb there with Pickens. You're facing the Eagles there. Yes, you're going to think that they're going to have to throw a little bit, and Dak is going to do just that, especially with the questionable ground game that I'm going to be talking with Rich Maletto about. But for me, this is a very big coin toss. I'm going to go with Lamb and Swift right there, though. That's just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg with what is going on, though. Looking at some of the week one matchups, but before I do that, want to talk with all of you about final auction strategies. You have my auction pieces up at fantasyguru.com so you can see who I'm targeting where. And also, the big thing is every auction's different, but saving that max bid at the end, I can't tell you, just so crucial. Mine was tested during my auctions, and that's why it's just so important for those that might be in a fantasy football auction tonight. You got to make sure you're keeping that high max bid. You got to make sure that when you and the rest of your league mates are down to, let's just say, even $15 or less in your $200 budget, then you have to make sure that you're keeping a $5, $6 max bid. Then when you guys are down to single digits, all of you, and you're down to $6, $7, you want that max bid of $2 to $3. That way you get your sleeper. Jaden Blue, someone that we've talked about a lot, someone Jeff Mans has talked about a lot on the Elite Sports Show, by the way, all week long on Fantasy Sports Radio, 2 p.m. Eastern. Ray Flowers joins him every single Wednesday. So Jeff's been talking a lot about Jaden Blue. And with this Cowboys backfield, don't get too caught up early on with depth charts. Depth charts can change very quickly. There are other sports where, of course, there are more games. So if you see someone in their rotation, like in the NBA, you see someone playing 30 minutes off the bench, well, you don't have to then say, well, they're not going to play 30 minutes off the bench again. There are a lot more games. With football, these depth charts change very quickly. So don't go all of a sudden you're seeing Big Bill, because I saw a report out there from the Commanders that Big Bill, number 4 on the depth chart when it comes to Commanders running backs. Don't go just dropping these guys just because. That can change very, very quickly. And that's why we're going to talk about those rushing attacks too, and why you need to make sure you're not overreacting, especially to the news right now. So for those out there that are playing in auctions, you can hit me up in Discord. Also at Fensty Sports, Fensty Sports on X and Instagram. But then I see questions about trading already. I'm already seeing people with trade questions, and it kind of made me think a little bit that let's talk about trades in fantasy sports, because I think that the love for trades is just way too much. We got to honestly go from midnight down to 6 instead of going from 6 to midnight, if you know what I'm saying. And that's because I don't want to trade in fantasy football. In fact, high stakes leagues don't even allow trading. Obviously, there's collusion and everything that you got to think about. But I am not into trading in fantasy football. It's weird because I like answering your trade questions. I do. It's fun to think about. But everything has context. So when you call 888-963-2682, you talk to Jeff Mans, you talk to Ray Flowers, you talk to Ted Schuster, you talk to me, you talk to Russell Clay. Context is king right here. But here's the thing. I know a few people, and I got a few friends, if you could believe it or not. I actually do have friends, and more than just my group of invisible friends, real actual friends with a pulse. They'll call me up and they'll text me. They'll be like, ha, I made another trade. How cool is that? Wheeling and dealing. I don't think that's cool at all. Doesn't impress me one bit. You telling me that you've made 8 trades makes me wonder and worry about your foundation. Trading is fun. I get it. I understand it's fun. Drafting is fun. But this is not about making trades for the sake of making trades, just so you can see the trade made on paper or on your screen or on your phone, whatever it is. No, making trades should occur because there is no way, or from what you're seeing, very little chance that you'll be able to make up a big loss on the waiver wire. And that's why I'm urging all of you to make sure you're trading out of need, not desire. Don't trade just because you want to. When you're trading every single week, you lack foundation. And when you lack a foundation, you don't know your true depth, and you don't see how your depth performs on a week in, week out basis so that you can further judge how to handle the rest of the season when and if you're in playoff contention. And that's why, to everybody that's all trade happy, if you know someone in your league that just likes to trade, that's one thing. Take advantage of that. But at the end of the day, if it's you, don't be looking for this season. Be like, I can't wait to make 5 trades. That's not how we play fantasy football. Not telling you not to trade. I'm just telling you to trade out of need, not desire. And trade from a position of strength. That's the other thing too. Don't go all risky if you don't have depth at a position. Don't trade from behind. If, let's say, you have barely any running backs, but you are loaded with wide receivers, trade from your wide receivers to your running backs. Get rid of some of that depth so you can shore up some of your other depth elsewhere. I've seen this happen a lot. I'm not going to call anyone out individually, but I've seen a few questions about how did I do on my auction, Fensty? And I love getting your questions in Discord and everything. By the way, in Discord, it's at Fensty, Fensty. Just the reason why I say that is because for some reason, ever since I've been given the Fensty nickname, which I think started in college. In high school, this is weird. In high school, I was actually known as Fenster for a while. And then it kind of changed right there. But, Fensty's better. But a lot of people spell it F-E-N-T-S-Y. No, F-E-N-S-T-Y. That's what it is. In case you want to get a hold of me, you want to talk about your auction, you want to talk strategy. But a few things I noticed in drafts. And if you're in a 12-team league, you're starting one quarterback, you're starting a tight end and a flex, that's it. You don't need multiple tight ends and multiple quarterbacks. Super flex, you're out of this discussion, obviously. But when I see people spending on, let's say, Jaden Daniels, you're not spending on another quarterback. Remember that. If you're going into your draft or auction tonight and you get one of those 5 from the elite tier, hell, even one who you anticipate being in the top 12 guys you're drafting in the 7th round, 8th round, even let's say the 7th round to be fair, you don't need to draft a second quarterback. You don't. And in an auction, you don't need to spend money. You talk about getting rid of your max bid right there. Yeah, $3 is $3 from someone else, but why? Why? Why put yourself in that spot? Why put yourself in that spot every single week where you're now making, it shouldn't be a decision. When you invest in a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, like Jalen Hurts, like Jaden Daniels, like Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, you're investing a high draft capital into the position. Believe in your investment. Don't check a box that's not there. It's invisible. You don't need a backup quarterback. You waited a long time on tight end. Okay, you waited till the very end. You didn't spend any meaningful draft capital on tight end, so now you're playing the stream game. You want a backup tight end. That's it. That's it. Barring injury, barring someone comes up questionable in the next day or two. But outside of that, you shouldn't be putting extra capital where you don't need to. You need running backs, you need wide receivers. And if you spend up on quarterback, and I spent in my auction, which, by the way, I was shocked, and this is why each auction is different. In my auction, whereas I was seeing in a lot of auctions, quarterbacks go for 20 plus, not a single quarterback went for $20 in my particular auction. I've been playing with this group, and we've been doing this auction, pretty much the same group for about 6-7 years at this point. So everybody's pretty savvy. Everyone's very experienced. But for me, because I was anticipating going for quarterback a lot more, quarterbacks going for 20 plus, I actually ended up putting a $17 bid and raising it to 17, and it didn't get raised on Lamar Jackson. I got Lamar Jackson. And so I got Lamar Jackson for 17. I'm not then going to spend $3-4 on Caleb Williams, let's just say, or even $1. I'm not going to do that because it's been said on a bunch of different programs that I've heard, you don't need that second quarterback. You don't. And look, I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm not. This is my suggestion. You can go tell me to go screw. I've seen industry experts do it, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Even in a 14-team league, yes. Yes. Injuries happen all the time. Can we predict how many quarterbacks are going to go down? No. But even for, let's say, a week or two, that opens up opportunity on the waiver wire. It does. Absolutely does. There are extenuating circumstances. Bigger benches. I get that. You're watching all of your league mates draft a backup, and now you don't want to be at a point. That's different. These are extenuating circumstances. But I'm talking 16 roster spots. I'm talking one quarterback starting. You don't need a second quarterback. You don't, especially if you're drafting one of those top 5. And so unfortunately, because I'm honest, I'm not going to be a jerk or anything or jerk off about it. But then when I'm being honest, being like, hey, you spent about $5 extra on something you didn't need. That money is so crucial, especially when it comes to getting your sleepers, especially when it comes to, let's just say that you weren't able to get in on the top end running backs or wide receivers, but there are always a few left that slip till towards the end of the auction. In my auction, it was J.K. Dobbins. He was there for a while. Cortland Sutton was there for a while too. And so by keeping some of that extra money early on, you can end up going in on those guys. But that's why even $5, having that extra $5 is so, so crucial. So Joseph's talking about running backs. We're going to talk a little bit about running backs, especially in Cleveland too, because there are just some situations, and I'm seeing a lot of questions naturally on Cleveland, on Houston, on Pittsburgh, on Washington. There are just a lot of interesting backfields that we're going to be watching early on here. And, Joseph already kind of trimming a little bit there. But when it comes to looking at there, I'll say this, Burden, who he's asking about, I am actually really cool with that. Having trouble getting that up right there. Huh, interesting. All right, so I tried. Wow, you think you could try to make something work here? It did not work, though. I do not know why. I'll have to figure out why it's not coming up on the screen. But Joseph, I am, by the way, seeing your questions and comments. Joseph, though, is asking about guys like Luther Burden. Don't drop him at this point here. You dropped your running backs, though, Judkins and Sampson. I mean, if somebody dropped them already, yeah, you could take a flyer on them. You can. I mean, with Judkins, that's going to be the big confusing thing of all. Okay, and just like that, I am back right there. Got kicked out, got booted out for a quick second here, but the show must go on. So there you go, right there. It seemed like it was a little bit of a mishap, a little technical issue. You see the question, though, right there regarding there. Do you drop Bryant? If you want to drop Bryant for one of them, Joseph, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with dropping him for Sampson at this point, just to keep that depth, because we'll have to see when Judkins is officially inserted just how much work he is going to be able to get early on. So that's why right here, that's what we're looking at when it comes to Judkins and that Cleveland situation here. Going to look to get our little document back up here at a little bit of a technical snafu, but that just happens sometimes. There it is. Boom, quick, just like that. Most improved player via tech issues. Let's continue talking about trading and issues when it comes to trading before I welcome on Rich Maletto, the Fantasy Bosco. When it comes to trading in fantasy football, there's also another onus that's put on winning the deal. And when it comes to winning the deal, you don't have to necessarily win the deal by getting the better player. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit. I mentioned before about you have a loaded list of receivers on your team, especially, by the way, if you're starting just 2 wide receivers and there's 1 flex, then you have even more flexibility right there. 3 wide receivers, you got to be a little bit more careful. And even trading early in the season, you're going to have to as well. But people get obsessed, and this is why trades break down. People get obsessed with winning the deal, looking, as I say, on paper, even though we're in a digital age, winning the trade, looking at the screen, being like, I hosed my opponent, my league mate. It's not about that when it comes to trading in fantasy. You can lose the deal via you're giving up the better player, but you could still win the deal. In fact, you and your trade partner can both win in your deal. And that, to me, is what makes the best trade. It's about finding a trade partner that you can grab something from, he grabs something or she grabs something from you, and you both can benefit. That's what it is. It's not just about, this is in redraft league. Dynasty, you have more to consider. Keeper league too, with keeper league rules via trade. But in redraft leagues, if you give up the best player of the deal, that's okay. As long as you're fulfilling that need that you have. You don't have a good list of running backs. You're getting a good running back, a good RB2. Fine. So what? It just shows how great your receivers are, and it just shows how much emphasis you put on drafting said receivers. That's totally fine. I have no problem with that. And I think sometimes we get a little too obsessed with winning the deal versus losing the deal, looking at the name value, and that's it. No. You're going to lose the deal sometimes when it comes to giving up the better name. But that doesn't mean that you made your team worse. That doesn't mean you necessarily lost the trade. You fulfilled the need. And at the end of the day, if that helps your depth when it's around playoff time, that's what you're looking for. So sometimes you've got to give up the better player. But if you've got enough depth at the receiver position, then yes, go grab yourself some running backs. Now, if you've got a tight end that's good and you're not just playing the waiver wire the entire season, and by the way, you could win streaming tight end the entire year. It doesn't mean necessarily you have to stream every week, but you can find a tight end on the waiver wire, ride that tight end for a few weeks, then drop and go stream another. Pretty much I'm saying all this because you don't necessarily have to focus on trading for a tight end or even a quarterback unless you're at a point where there's nothing out there and someone's hoarding even 2 or 3. But for me, when I make trades, and even thinking back very quickly to the trades I made, and again, I don't like trading, but that doesn't mean I haven't done it. If I get a fair deal, then yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not just going to be like, no trading. I'll look at every deal, but don't waste my time. Don't let your league mates waste your time. Let's make a trade. No, you want to make a trade? You offer me. And don't just have that starting point offer of, oh, yeah, well, we got to start somewhere. I know this is a lopsided deal, but we got to start. No, don't waste anybody's time. We don't have that time. Give a fair deal. Give a deal where, yeah, your opponent benefits, but you benefit too. That's okay. You don't get style points for trades. You don't. So when you're making that trade, don't worry about necessarily giving up the better player. Now, if you're trading a 1-for-1 in the same position, that's where that comes in. But when you're trading for a different position and you give up the better wide receiver, especially if you have a loaded list of wide receivers, then that's okay. That's okay if you give up the better guy to shore up your depth at running back. That's what it's all about. That's how you make it through. I was in a keeper league last year, and in said keeper league, the year before, I have no problem admitting this, I had a horrible year, horrible draft. My keepers from the year before all busted. I was riding these running backs, and I was riding, rode them into the ground, kept them a little too long. So I ended up as a bottom 2 team. Bottom 2 team. I'm totally fine admitting that. Last year later, again, this is a keeper league. So there's foundations that are set up that are going to help teams contend for years and years. I'm kind of rebuilding. I was able to make it to the semifinals. And that's because it's all about the depth battle. It's all about just making sure that you're preparing yourself so that in case someone goes down, you don't have to spend your entire capital week 1. I see it all the time. Someone goes down, God forbid, week 1 with a season-long injury. It's time to spend your entire budget on that player. But it's not always that player. Sometimes teams will then opt for committees. You're seeing it a lot more in football now. So that's why you got to be careful. You got to be careful how much you go on. If you're loaded with running back depth and someone gets hurt this weekend, but you're loaded, don't be spending 80% just to get that running back to hoard another one. No. And look, if you lose said running back and you didn't handcuff, well, with the Elite Mafia, and Jeff Mance has been talking about this for well over a decade, the importance of handcuffing. They're not wasted roster spots. They're insurance policies. And some of them, and especially as teams have really transitioned into using more dual backfields, not just one guy that's getting 20 plus carries. It's not like that. There are not that many of those guys anymore. Game has changed. So that's why at the end of the day, when it comes to trading, trade from a position of strength, trade out of need, not desire, and make sure you're not too focused on winning the trade versus losing the trade based on name value alone. Make sure you're getting your depth at wide receivers and running backs. Tony, it's great to see you. That's right. One more sleep, and it's back Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. I can't wait. Just like I can't wait to bring on this guest. We're reunited, and it feels oh so good. It's Rich Maletto, the fantasy Bosco from fantasyguru.com. Rich, what's going on, man? How's everything?
Good. How are you doing, Fensty?
I'm good, man. You got a very serious look on your face right now. Are you on the offensive line? You getting ready to protect Joe Flacco or something?
No, I screwed up on something I sent to Rob, and I was trying to figure out what I did.
Oh no, you don't make mistakes, Rich. Come on, we know
Yeah, I
that.
did.
Are
Yeah,
you good now, Rich, or you need a few more minutes to figure this out?
no, nope, I'm good, man. I'm
All
good.
right, very good. Well, dude, it's great being back with you here, man. And thank you so much for joining me. I was telling everyone just kind of how the Wednesdays are going to go throughout the season, and that even though the people once the NBA season, people might hear me and see me talk a little bit of basketball to start. You're going to be joining me every single week to talk football, and I'm damn proud to have you back on with me.
Well, thanks a lot, man. I like being here, so I really appreciate that, Fenstein. Seriously.
For sure, man. Now, like, I got to ask you, I've been trying to kind of keep up over the last few weeks with your Cleveland Browns. What the hell's going on with their rushing attack, man? Even getting questions about whether or not to pick up some of their flyers or anything. Judkins, where does he fit into all of this? I mean, what are your expectations for this backfield early on? How do we handle it?
I think we're all going to be pleasantly surprised and pleased with Dylan Sampson once we see him out on the field. I think he's a better interior runner than people are giving him credit for. I don't expect to see him on the field a lot for third down to start with. His pass protection was definitely one of something that needed worked on, a little weaker part of his game. Ford is there. We know what Ford can do. So here's the problem with Junkins. The team's not doing anything until the NFL finishes an investigation. Is that this week? Is that next week? Is that next month? I honestly don't know. All the charges were dismissed. So I would have thought, hey, if the NFL cared about this young man's career, that they'd, button it up and try to get something addressed or figured out. And they obviously are in no rush to do so. So I don't know. And the more he sits out and doesn't practice, the further behind he gets.
That's
Right?
what
I
I'm
mean,
only concerned with a rookie, especially Rich. That's what, and I was, by the way, I was concerned about that with Jonathan Brooks going into the year. Even when Brooks was ready to come back, I mean, the adjustment, how much is he going to be used? Is he going to be eased in? Which obviously that was when they found out they had a gold mine in Chuba Hubbard, then yeah, that was going to be the plan. But with Judkins, I kind of have these similar fears that even if, let's say, everything's figured out and a deal's reached in the next week or so. I mean, now we don't know what he's doing on the side. He could just be sitting there eating Funyuns the entire time.
and I've been complaining that I think the off season is too short as it is. You know, I I had a lot of success in fantasy football, just always making sure I drafted rookie running backs, taking my shots on the rookie running backs that were likely in good opportunities, were likely going to get a heavier workload. Like, for example, Caleb Johnson. He's further behind. The team has made that known. I think eventually Caleb Johnson will be what we all expect Caleb Johnson to be. The problem is it's probably going to be week 6, week 8 before we start seeing that. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I don't think that's the case. I think all the stuff we're hearing in the, where he's at in the depth chart, that's all stuff that would have been talked about in July and August when these guys first started hitting the field and practicing back in June and having two-a-days. Now let's be honest. Practice really starts 1 week before the Hall of Fame game. Like, this is just mind-blowing to me. Like, I can't even imagine playing high school football and having 1 week of practice. Like, I remember spending 3 weeks or more of just conditioning, getting into shape, that stuff before they let us hit each other, And then once we started hitting each other, it was a weekly thing. And I maintain that, we see this in martial arts. You see, like, kicking bamboo, right? We see this with MMA fighters, kicking trees, kicking bamboo, doing things to harden, the shin to build up calluses and strength. And I think that's what you do in football when you practice, and them not practicing, I think is why we have all these kind of weird injuries. And I don't get it. And it shows up in the first 5 to 6 weeks of the season was sloppy. I know everybody's excited. I'll be the bad guy. It's going to be crappy football for the next month, man.
What?
I mean, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's what I expect. I am not going to get overly hyped or excited about for our fantasy teams and know what we have. We are going to be battling people getting so worked up because things are not going the way they thought they would and opposites are happening. I mean, do you remember the start of last year, what everybody thought of the New Orleans Saints? Do you remember what it was after the first 2 weeks of the seasons regarding the New Orleans Saints?
Dude, that seemed like an eternity ago. You tell me.
They were one of the hottest teams. They started out, what was it, 2-0? And well, the Saints are legit. The Saints are real. They were garbage. They were like the worst team in the NFL by the end of the year. It's not what people were saying to start the season when they thumped. Wasn't it Dallas that they thumped to start the season? I mean, Dallas ended up being kind of a meh, whatever. But the way the year started, same thing happened a couple of years ago. We are all going to get super excited for stuff that in a month to 2 months from now, we're going, yeah, that's just not the case.
And that's why I'm telling people to be careful trading early on in the season, Rich.
Yes.
And we talked about this a little bit when we last hung out about 3-4 weeks ago. And there are just going to be people champing at the bit to just freaking make a trade. And it's just, dude, between did I win or did I lose the deal? Being impatient and getting rid of guys after maybe 2 subpar performances. Trading to me, in a way, is like the devil in fantasy football. I have to be so desperate that I'm willing to make a deal with the devil in order to execute a trade.
The amount of questions I've already seen on people looking to make trades, doing drops, and I'll be honest, I've probably gotten snotty or snooty with people. You drafted your team. I don't know. I want to see it work out. Now, let's say I got kind of lost in the draft at the end and took a shot on players and missed out, didn't see someone, fine. End of the bench. You want to make a change, but you don't need to ask us about that. If you're having to ask us about if you should do it, you probably don't need to do it. I do not understand the idea of I have to do something. I feel like that's a problem in fantasy football. People, I appreciate not resting on your laurels, but I feel like people are like, I have to do something, and they get happy hands. I've got to send out trades. I got to make a move. When you draft some of these stash players, like let's say Jadon Blue does not start out on fire, we're going to have a whole pile of people. One, because they probably overdrafted him, because Jeff's excited about him. We're excited about him. So they probably took him maybe a little early, which his ADP, I mean, people were, this is why we say, if you want your guy, that's fine, go get it. But don't flip out when it doesn't start out or go your way for the first month. But if he starts off slow.
I auction bid on him of $5, but I had Javonte.
See, and I straight up was not. People are laughing. I'm going to ask Armando here in a little bit. I want to see if I can do a Rich's do not draft list because I apparently have a large do not draft list that. I mean, Javonte was on it, Mixon was on it, Olave was on it. Actually, all the Saints were on it. I wasn't even interested in Olave, so I don't have any Saints on any of my teams. I just don't want to have players on my teams that I don't have a lot of faith in their team, the situation, all that. And that's where I was going with Blue. Eventually, I think he's going to be impactful. It may not happen till week 6. And there's going to be a pile of people that picked up somebody that's a stash player. They drop him before we even get halfway through the season. And then they're upset when, as we start rolling into the playoffs, people that had Blue are using him and he was free. And the people that had him and dropped him are now scrambling to pick him back up and dropping all sorts of fab or they're out of fab. Fantasy football is much about patience as it is being ahead of the curve. Like we always want to react to every news when I prefer to kind of listen and pick my points to react. And I know what's going to happen, man. These first 5-6 weeks are going to have people upside down and you hit the nail on the head. And I think you're spot on about the trading. And please don't do same position player swaps. I do not understand doing that, Fensty. I can't do it. I won't do it.
No, and you shouldn't make, at that point, you shouldn't make the trade and then tell us, hey, what do you think of this trade I should just make? If you really like that. And look, Rich, it could work the other way too, man. Maybe someone is kind of pissed off at one of their, tier 2 or tier 3 wide receivers for having 2 8-point in a PPR performances, and that's it. A couple of catches for 40 yards, and that's it. And that in that regard, you can take advantage, but that's very rare that you're going to catch someone really sleeping like that.
And that's fair. Targeting people who undervalue players,
Well, the overreactors like you're talking about, probably half our audience.
Well, and I think, where some of the overreaction comes from, Finsty, is chasing points.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, I don't want the player after they broke out. Give me the player that's getting volume that isn't quite scoring what we want. Give me that. Like, I do not mind the first half of the year. I've got a player that's kind of just slowly trending up, that's on the field all the time, that's getting, let's say it's a receiver, getting that 6 to 8 targets on a regular basis. Maybe they're not catching them all, but getting 6 to 8 targets on a regular basis and hasn't had a touchdown yet this season or hasn't had that 100-yard game. Those things are going to be coming with the volume. The law of averages will work out over the long term. Trey McBride is not going to continue to get 0 passing touchdowns. It's not going to happen, right? So play the law of averages. I want the volume without the points. So if you're doing that in a trade and whatnot, and I'll be honest, man, I'm a fan of leagues that don't allow trading for redraft. I know
I'm with you, man. I thought about bringing it up in my home league. Not like anyone's really making trades in this league. It's been a few years since a trade's gone down in my home league. I thought about just bringing it up, but I'm almost afraid to because it's out of sight, out of mind. And if I bring it up, people are going to be forcing trades I'm worried about.
And for some people, they love it. And I consistently say this, we take this game way too seriously at times. It is a game. It's no different than football, basketball. We're playing a fantasy version of it, but it is a game. We do this because we think we're good at it. It's a challenge and it's fun. I don't want to ever lose sight of that. People get, asking about dropping this player for that player, and then the same tier. If you want to, get the player you want. If you have a FOMO problem, a fear of missing out problem, I'm sorry, there is only one solution to that. It's more leagues. Right. If you really struggle with the FOMO issue, and I don't want to miss out on this guy, and I didn't take him, then do enough leagues where you can have a smattering of players and you can see it work out. Otherwise, we've got to get over this fear of missing out and call our shots, take it on the chin when we're wrong, pound our chest when we're right, and roll with it. Don't be afraid to be bold and make our decisions and move on. JFFF. It's just freaking fantasy football. Nobody is going to die when we make the wrong decision. Nobody is going to die when we pick up the wrong player. So keep in mind, it's fun. If you want that player, go get him. If you have concern, if you are not a Kenneth Walker guy, he has burned you in the past and you don't want the injuries, then don't draft him. Find a different angle. He's a value, but you don't have to take him,
Right. It's just unfortunate because we have to plant our flags, Rich. And you brought it up before with Jeff.
It's true.
Jeff loves Jaden Blue for a lot of good reasons. But if he's not doing anything in the first few weeks, they're going to be after him unnecessarily. And
it's going to drive me nuts.
And it shouldn't be that way. I think that's why, Rich, especially when it's us, I'm with you. And I try to remember, this is just a game in fantasy football. It's supposed to be fun and it's a game. But I guess, Rich, because of what we do and where we're at and how hard we work and how we don't want to feel like we're letting down the audience if we get stuff wrong. But we're not robots. We're going to get stuff wrong.
Look, I don't care who's prognosticating. Nobody is perfect at picking the future. That's what we're all trying to do. And we take a lot of pride in getting you pointed in the right direction, using the right data, looking at the right data and content. There's all sorts of data out there, and a lot of it's useless and a lot of it's fantastic. You got to know where to look. I know you and I have talked about this. I would much rather see my own team sink than me get something wrong I advised you on.
Right.
And the challenge is there are many times, again, this is why I like tiered rankings. If you go to a weekly tier rankings page and you've got two players in the same tier, we are splitting hairs if you're trying to figure out who is start. Okay.
Right.
We can have leans. And I'll be honest, I think we focus too much on start sit. Jeff said something on air a couple of weeks ago that I've tried to explain to my cousin, and he wasn't grasping. I don't want decisions. I do not want weekly headaches. So I am okay stashing players on my bench, getting 0 points, knowing that if something happens, that player can step into a massive role. I don't want to be deciding between James Conner and Travion Henderson for my flex. I don't want to do it. I would rather plant my flag on one of them, get the handcuff for the backup, or own that running back situation and move on. And my cousin's baffled by this. You'd rather get 0 points on your bench than some points? Yeah, I would. Yeah, but some points are better than no points. Okay, but are they good enough points to put in my starting lineup? I'm trying to build the best starting lineups. What's that?
They're on your bench. Who cares?
Right.
Right.
I don't need them. I only want the points to start. So if they aren't scoring enough points to go on my starting lineup on a regular basis, I don't care if it's 0 or 4. What I want is I'm buying the opportunities, right? I'm buying, is there a chance for higher volume? Is there a chance they surpass someone on the depth chart? That's what I'm worried about. All right, now maybe I have a tougher decision at the end of the year, right? But for the most part, I don't want to make these tough decisions. It's not fun. It's not worth it. I've played this game long enough to realize I don't need it. Having a bunch of flex points on my bench doesn't make my overall team better, because guess what? We are never going to guess right a high percentage of the time on who to play in a 50-50 coin flip. You're not. You are going to get it wrong. I mean, part of the reason, we're all in too many leagues. That we do this for fun. We all talk about it and don't openly admit it, but let's be honest, we're all in too many leagues. There are times that I just play somebody because I don't have that option anywhere else. I'm torn between Dylan Sampson and I'm trying to think someone that's probably in that same tier. Chris Rodriguez. Well, I've only got Chris Rodriguez in one league. Okay, so I'll play him in the one league, and I'll play Sampson in the 3 of the other 4 leagues I have him in.
How's that going to work, by the way?
What's that? How's that going to work?
In DC, the Commanders' backfield, man, because that's a hodgepodge right there. Because is it going to be Big Bill? Is it going to be like the return of Austin Eckler being like a top high-end guy and not just catching passes? Is it going to be Chris Rodriguez? That's been very hard to navigate as well.
So, let's look at what history's told us and what the team has done. Brian Robinson has been the more volume guy. Eckler has constantly been mixed in, a little bit of McNichols, especially when Eckler is out. But for the most part, it's been a 1A, 1B type of situation with Eckler doing the stuff that Eckler does best, right? Not running between the tackles, maybe down near the end zone, something like that, right? I don't think that changes. This is where, I said we're going to get a bunch of fluff. I assume for now, Chris Rodriguez probably takes over the Brian Robinson type role for the first few weeks. He's been there. He knows the playbook. We know he can handle pass pro. Any of the questions that we've had about Big Bill, Ja'Cory over there, doesn't really apply to Rodriguez. Now, Ja'Cory has a lot more juice than Rodriguez. You see that. You see that on the field when he plays. But like we just talked about with Caleb Johnson, Caleb Johnson's technically listed as the running back 3 on the roster. So some of these coaches play games with rookies to get in their head. Some of them.
I spent about 8 minutes before talking about how much of BS running back depth charts are when it comes to the NFL. It could change after one play.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you a perfect example. I was at the Browns-Steelers game a couple of years ago. I think Nick Chubb, they may have listed Nick Chubb as a starter, but they also started 3 tight ends to open the series. Right? When they announced the starting lineup, they announced 3 tight ends to come out on the field. Whether it's captains, whether it's starting lineups, a lot of this is hype, for the player. It's mental games the coaches do, all that. Bottom line is, in my opinion, Chris Rodriguez is going to start out with the higher volume. Austin Eckler can be listed as the 1 all they want. He is not going to get 20-some touches or carries. We're probably going to see a 3-headed rushing monster begin with Ja'Cory getting just the scraps left over, trying to see what he does. If he ends up popping a couple of big plays in his limited work the first 2 weeks, you're going to see him get more work sooner. If he's a little slow going, like we've heard a little bit about Blue in the preseason, we've heard a little bit about Caleb in the preseason, don't be shocked that it's not until week 6, and then all of a sudden, poof, Blue's getting 12 to 15 touches a game. Caleb is now seeing the bulk of the workload, just slightly over Jaylen Warren. And, Chris Rodriguez is now kind of backing up Jacory, right? Like, these things are very plausible. Do not be shocked. And what's going to happen is everybody's like, see, I knew I should have sold Jacory during the preseason. And then there's going to be people that are dropping him. And then there's going to be people picking him up. And then all of a sudden at week 12, we're going to be like, man, I'm glad I held him all season long. Like, this is the same merry-go-round we do every year. Nobody wants to wait and have patience. Everything we know now exactly what it is at the end of each and every week. And it's just not the case. So I think Jacory's the guy to hold long-term. I have no problem people pick up Chris Rodriguez. I think he's a smokescreen, so I'm letting that ride for now. Maybe I eat my words later.
Last year in one of my leagues, I actually had someone after like a week 1 or week 2 drop Chuba Hubbard, and I was shocked. We didn't know at the time. I don't think he was extended at this point. And we all thought, Jonathan Brooks was going to come back probably after week 4 off the IR, and that was going to be that after a couple of weeks of him getting into the offense. But someone dropped Chuba. Dude, I picked him up. I was a Sunday pickup, which is why Sunday pickups are very underrated, because it gives you a little bit of a glimpse to kind of think ahead and even plan ahead too, that if you see someone, a random wide receiver that has 3 soft secondaries coming up, pick them up, keep them on your bench. It always seems like it's not always that you have room Sunday, but at least with me, Rich, there's always at least one player that I'm not forcing the drop, but that I can toggle being on and off the team and not lose sleep over.
I usually have at least a player like that on my roster, and I love doing that, especially as the bye weeks hit and injuries hit. I'm notorious for just being savage on Yahoo's waiver wire because of exactly that, right? Guys are in IR, you can make the moves, and as long as the roster's set for the following week, the waiver will go through and everything else, as long as the claim goes in while stuff is legit. I love picking up backup running backs that way on Monday night. I do this all the time. Same thing on Sunday. You don't know what's going to happen. And I would rather and as a guy that spent all my fab early on, I have to grind a couple of weeks ahead. I'm fine with that. I enjoy that. I look to do that. I want to get my guys early, and then I'll figure it out. And if I've just got to be a couple of weeks early, I can, because I don't mind grabbing that backup or grabbing that receiver that's flashed a little bit that might be climbing the depth chart that just hasn't yet, right? So I'm with you on that, man. Sign me up for that stuff. But again, I have someone to drop. If you're sitting there and you don't be dropping all your stash players. This is where roster construction matters. How many stash players do you have? How many do you want to have?
And who's out, by the way, for the week, Rich? That's also important, because someone is out. You could put them on the IR once they're out, and boom, just like that, you have a free square for a few days.
And monitor that. Like, this is why I like to put in some claims like on Yahoo on Monday before the injury reports come out, because I can put the claims in while they're in the IR spot and it'll process, especially when we know there's a player that's out and it looks like they're going to be out a couple of weeks, because these teams play games. Oh yeah, they're doubtful, they're probable, they're maybe, and then they don't go out again until the end of the week. Well, you've had to drop someone or pick somebody back up and do this game of going back and forth because they're IR available or not. If you play a week ahead, you can avoid that stuff, but you got to be diligent with it.
Right. No, absolutely. And that's what it all comes down to. And that's a big theme of this episode of Fantasy Sports Daily: patience. And yeah, it sucks to go 0-2, but it's beatable. It is. It's not that bad. It's when you're 0-5, that's when you got problems right there. Now you got a big problem. You're 0-2, don't sweat it. Rich, I got to ask you this though, man. I was actually messing with my DFS lineups a little bit. I'm that excited that I'm already looking at main slate. Being that it is the Bengals defense and a division game, what are your thoughts on some of these Browns options for Sunday for DFS lineups. Like even a Njoku that's pretty cheap. I mean, do any of those guys turn you on for the Bengals matchup at all? I mean, again, I'm looking right now, and the first place I look at is someone like Njoku, who's out 4,700. So that could kind of save me a little bit of coin.
I don't mind that move, with Flacco under center. I actually did in our staff pick'ems. I did pick the Browns to win for two reasons. The Browns are at home. I think that matters. And the Bengals have had a history of starting slow, very slow. Now, maybe they've got that figured out a little bit, but I went back and I couldn't figure out. Every year for the last 3 years, the Bengals have started terribly slow. And this Browns defense isn't bad. So could I see a sloppy, ugly game that gets close and the Browns inch it out? Yeah, especially with Flacco, because Flacco might turn it over, but he's going to push the ball down the field. Now, hopefully this isn't the Flacco that played with the Colts last year, and it's the Flacco that played with the Browns a couple of years ago. And if so, to your point, Njoku's going to eat. A player I kind of like for the week, though, is Sampson. I really do. I think we're going to get a high dose of the rookie running back. Like I said, I don't think you're going to see him in passing downs as much, but don't be shocked if Ford starts the game as a starter, gets the first handoff, then the bulk of the carries go to Sampson with Jerome Ford playing the third down back. I wouldn't be shocked to see something like that. And I don't have look, Troy Hendrickson getting back on this defense matters a lot, but this Bengals defense doesn't look good. And hopefully for Cincinnati fans, they prove me wrong. But right now on paper, I have my doubts on this Cincinnati defense, which is why I like the offensive players. But this defense is going to have to, I guess in all fairness, they're playing against the Browns and the Steelers twice a year. So, you don't really need a defense to play those offenses, at least not on paper, it looks like. But you're going to need it to play the Ravens tough. Yeah. So, I don't know what's going to go on there. But give me some Sampson. I'm okay with Njoku. I'm kind of curious about Judy. Maybe I'm having a blind spot for Tillman, and Flacco unleashes Tillman because, Judy really did all his work with one QB at the end of the year last year. But Winston and Flacco kind of overlap, and Judy ate with Winston. So I think maybe Judy's the little secret, wide receiver play for the week.
Little DFS conversation here. Before we head out for the day, Rich, a couple of questions that we got here. Not knowing the context, so let's pretend like we're just looking at this straight up. Obviously, we don't know the rest of his team here, but offered Sutton and Pollard for James Conner. I'm good with that.
I take it. I take it. I think Tony Pollard's going to see the volume that we want from James Conner through the first month of the season while Tajay Spears is hurt. The offensive line got beefed up in Tennessee. I'm all about getting me some Pollard, and then you're going to get me Sutton on top of that. Game on, because there's already talk about Benson stealing some of Conner's work. Conner's getting up there. He keeps proving us wrong, and I hope he does again. But give me Pollard and Sutton on side on that deal.
I have a bigger fear that when we're talking week 8, week 9, that Benson will be impacting Conner's workload more than Spears, assuming he's off the IR and he's ready to go. And now it's been a few weeks and he's got some of the rust off and everything. I still think it will be Benson that will be impacting Conner more than Spears at that point would be impacting Pollard. So I'm with you there.
Even if it's the same, you're getting Sutton out of this.
Yeah, right. Exactly. At the end of the day.
And Tajay both eat into the same type of volume. You're still getting Sutton with the deal and the volume's the same, right?
Right. Exactly. And then finally, Rich, again, we don't know context, but just do you worry about this in general here? Because Kyle has a team where he has Josh Allen, Shakir, Coleman. Now, he seems to want to play both Coleman and Shakir, but he does have a little trepidation here. Being that it's Josh Allen, nice high total and everything in this game, would you be okay because it's Josh Allen playing both receivers, or do you think maybe spreading the wealth a little bit in case Allen has a bad game is the safer move and the better move?
I hate to rain on someone's parade here, but one, I don't look to have stacks in head-to-head competitions. So for me, there is zero incentive or extra value to play either receiver or Josh Allen. Just throwing that out there. I don't really care to have that. 2, you might want to check Shakir's availability. because right now he's limited in practice and the ankle's an issue. You may not have the choice of playing Shakir. So if you want to go Shakir and Coleman here, be sure to watch and have a backup plan, because I have Shakir in a couple of leagues. I'm not sold that he plays. I may have to make that adjustment. So heads up on that. Let's assume they're all healthy. I'm not a Coleman guy. I'd play Shakir over Coleman. Here's my problem, Mr. Kyle. You're putting a lot of eggs in one basket, and I get Buffalo has scored well and done well. You're putting a lot of eggs in one basket in a head-to-head type of format. Long term, that's going to be a challenge for you. Again, perfect example of headaches I don't want to deal with. I mean, you know, I get the Ollie Gordon question. I'll play Ollie Gordon if we know that Wright is out, which it looks like he will be. And if we're still hearing rumblings of A-Chain being limited, then fine. I have no problem.
Right.
I think the Dolphins are going to be a mess. I don't have a lot of faith in Coleman, so I don't want to play him. I'd play Jacoby over Coleman. And if we heard news on A-Chain being out and Wright being out, then yeah, I'd throw Ollie Gordon ahead of both of them. But
and I'm with you right there, Rich. I'm with you 100% too on that. So with that, Rich, what's going on with you on the site? Obviously, you're still doing all of your NASCAR content and racing content for the site, but what are you going to be involved with when it comes to the football side of the content at Fantasy Guru?
I believe I'll be doing the same content I've been doing. I've got the weekly streamers article coming out on Wednesday. Start and sit will be dropping on Friday. And just to let everybody know, the start sit is basically a list. That's what I've gone to. It is not rankings. It is not projections. It is how I want to play players. You know, would I play this player over this player or this player over this player? I go through basically a whole list. And the flex sections is leaned on a half-point PPR setup. I don't know what to tell people other than that's just how I'm playing players. It is not a rankings. It is not Jeff's rankings. I can't speak to any of that. So I just want people to understand. If you ask me who I'm playing, it's in the start sit article. Outside of a couple of, you know, like I said, if there's a 50-50 or players are close, if I got a bunch of shares of these players, I'm playing some here and not others. I don't like to have, if I have a player in 7 leagues, I really don't want to play him in all 7 leagues.
I hear you, man. I hear you. And Sean, thank you so much again for joining the Elite Mafia. Get ready to win, because that's what we're all about here. It's all about the process. Make sure you're involved. For all those that are new to fantasyguru.com, go into our Discord too. We have a bunch of different Discord channels that are very, very active that help out with specifics. There's a commissioner one, a dynasty one, and so forth, and all the other sports as well. So Sean, welcome to the Elite Mafia. And thank you everybody, by the way, for hanging out. It's been great being back. And I want to thank everyone again at fantasyguru.com for all of the support over these last few weeks with me bringing in the new little one. Make sure you don't follow my guest, Rich Maletto, at Fantasy Bosco on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, but still follow all of his work at fantasyguru.com. Rich, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Fensty.
Yes, he is Rich Maletto. I am Justin Fensterman at Fensty Sports, FENSTY Sports on X, Instagram, and at Fensty, FENSTY in our Discord. And by the way, Elite Sports Game Time returns Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Me and Russell Clay, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. And we want to hear from you at 888-963-2682. For the Bosco, I'm the Fensty. Ray Flowers back tomorrow, same time, same place, same stream right here. Fantasy Sports Daily, noon Eastern on the Elite Plus Network, powered by fantasyguru.com.